Guys, this is post-game coverage on WardyNYM number 2 out of at least 100 plus that we're going to see this year on the channel. And this is after a Mets victory that we've seen tonight with, yes, Jacob deGrom on the mound, pitching in a game for the first time in over 9 months. And he was simply deGrom in the couple innings. So we're going to be deep diving everything that there is to know from, of course, the Mets post-game today after winning 2-0 against the Houston Astros. Who fared well, who maybe didn't look that great overall, my initial takes and reactions to everything that transpired. Breaking down Jacob deGrom's performance, especially coming back after all these months, almost a year it feels like, since the man pitched on a mound for the Mets last, getting into the offensive production for the Mets here, and overall answering your questions as well if you guys are watching this live. And if you're watching this on replay too, and if you want to get your questions answered for post-game coverage, make sure to try to chime in the live streams. They are going to be happening shortly after most Mets games throughout the entirety of the season on the channel. So before I go any further, I want to shout out everyone that's first in the live stream. If you guys are here live, I see Matthew, I see Daniel, Anthony, Carlos, Kish, great member on the channel, Anxious, Jamari, first name, Sydney, Guardians of Chaos, how's it going? Matthew, Salomon, how's it going, buddy? Josh, Brian, Felix, great member. All you guys, thank you all so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Help us get to 100 to 200 likes by the end of the live stream. It's always appreciated. Like I said, plenty to get into in this one. And Mama Worm, how's it going? What's happening in the world of Conforto? We might discuss Conforto once we get more to the Q&A segment here. But again, big win for the Mets tonight. And I know that's spring train, so you should only put so much stock when the Mets win or lose in spring training. That's how it's always going to be. And shout out to everyone that's first chiming in right now or watching replay. I do appreciate it. But this was a big one for the Mets. And all in all, what mattered most was seeing how the GOAT, yes, you see him right there in the highlights, Jacob deGrom, how would he perform today? You know, this is a tall task for a guy that we haven't seen pitch before the All-Star break in 2021. We're talking about someone that had a quote-unquote partially torn UCL, to which Sandy Alderson made that statement, and then deGrom, denounced it basically shortly after last year. And there's been so much uncertainties on Jake and his health, and he was looking great this spring, ready to go for this game. And the Mets, it was announced by Mets reporters prior to the game that he would only be getting around 2 innings. He pitched between 25 and 41 pitches, and he did exactly that today. But when you want to know exactly, is Jacob deGrom back? Is he looking like his normal self? He proved it with ease that Jacob deGrom is just Jacob deGrom, fully healthy, looking locked and loaded, ready to go. 2 innings pitched, not a problem. Only gave up 1 hit. That was to the Miami Marlin, the former Miami Marlin that has killed the Mets in recent years a little bit. That being a Lewis Brinson. He was the final piece of that blockbuster at the time, Christian Yelich trade. He signed this offseason on a minor league deal with the Astros, and he had a really nice double down the line off of Jake. But that's all that the hitters for the Astros got today. Jake was disgusting with the fastball and, of course, with the slider. Even threw a curveball in there jokingly for Max Scherzer, because Scherzer asked him if he could go out there and start off an at-bat by throwing a curveball. So they were kind of joking about it. But everything looked fantastic with Jacob deGrom and his arsenal today. Most of you guys probably know that by now. But 31 pitches, 5 strikeouts in 2 innings. deGrom was simply deGrominant. And if you want to go through deGrom's numbers a little bit further before we get into all the offensive production, which we will be doing that shortly, man, oh man, did Jake stand out. And I was wondering, was Jake going to be pumping back a little bit on the fastball today? Was he going to be hitting right around triple digits a lot, or was he going to pump it back a little? Well, what we saw today was he did not hit triple digits once. Again, it's the beginning of spring, and I don't care if Jake ever hits triple digits. If he does, awesome. But we all know that what is most important is deGrom's health. But what we saw today, at least with the fastball that he used 60% of the time to his slider 33% of the time, then he had the changeup for 3% and curveball for 3% because he only threw those pitches twice in total. But if you look at the fastball, he topped out right around 99 miles per hour and sat at the lowest right over 96 miles per hour, averaging right around 98 miles per hour. So again, a mile per hour or so off from what his average was the past season. Sliders, absolutely disgusting, topped out around 93 miles per hour, sat at the lowest, just under 92 miles per hour. And again, average-wise today was 92 miles per hour, which actually was slightly higher than his season average last year at 91.6. But if we round it, basically the same. So velo on the slider is exactly what you expect from Jake. It's one of the nastiest, if not the nastiest slider in all baseball with what he is doing. And then again, change up. He only threw it once today, but threw it at 90 miles per hour. Jacob deGrom, a 90 mile per hour change up. I'm forgetting on the actual hitter that he struck out from the Astros. wasn't an everyday player, but it looked like he was doing a stare down to Jake when that happened, but he actually wasn't. He was looking at the scoreboard to see the mile per hour on the pitch because he's like, change up, 90 on the change up. Good grief. And the fact that Jake has 4 pitches in his arsenal like this and he really only needs to throw 2 is just disgusting. It's really up to him, especially if those rare occurrences where he say isn't locating well on the slider or fastball, then that's where he'll pump out more of those changeup and curveballs. But he only threw a curveball like 3 times last year, and he did it once today, and that was right around 80 miles per hour. Just nasty stuff from Jacob deGrom, guys. I mean, everything that you would hope and expect from someone like him, assuming he was fully healthy. And that's exactly what we got. So I can't complain whatsoever. I'm beyond ecstatic to see Jacob deGrom in his, normal Jacob deGrom self. It was not just refreshing to see him on the mound today, guys. And let me know how you're feeling in the live stream, because we're on replay. Let me know in the comments. It just felt surreal. I mean, it felt surreal watching Max Scherzer yesterday. I know we were all in agreement on that, but just seeing Jake back, it's so hard to fathom how long ago it was since Jake was pitching competitively for the Mets again, outside of doing a sim game or anything like that. Like, it was just absolutely tremendous. Like, I honestly had a little bit of goosebumps seeing that disgusting 92 mile per hour slider that got Kyle Tucker striking out to do an easy 1-2-3 first for him that he struck out the side. And Kyle Tucker is one of the best hitting outfielders in all of baseball for the Houston Astros, and he just made him look silly. And don't get me wrong, we're going to see the Mets match up with elite hitters this year, but the thing is that the Mets have the most elite pitcher on the planet in Jacob deGrom, and as long as he's rolling, great things are going to happen. As long as he's healthy, great things are going to happen. So I want to know everyone's reaction in the live stream, guys, or if you're watching replay, let me know in the comments, how did you feel about Jacob deGrom and his masterclass of an easy, and I mean easy, 2 innings first out of the gate? And he said post-game, his coverage right after he was done pitching, he said he was actually nervous for today's game just because of how long it's been since we've seen himself, of course, pitch against a team that wasn't the New York Mets doing a sim game or something. So I really want to know everyone's thoughts, again, on replay or in the comments of the live stream, and I'll make sure to scroll up in the live stream shortly, guys. I'll be answering plenty of your questions once we get to the Q&A segment. I just want to share everything that I want to share here on this recap of a fantastic game for the Mets, because offensively, they looked a lot better than yesterday. I had people in the live stream and in the comments already telling me that they're freaking out about the Mets' lack of offense when they only got themselves 2 hits in the loss to the Marlins, when they didn't have a starting lineup out by any stretch versus today. And yes, the Mets only got 2 runs today, but they definitely had better hitting, and it was nice to see the Mets actually execute when they were supposed to. But for those that aren't aware, the lineup that the Mets rolled out today was basically the Mets starting lineup this season, outside of Dom Smith playing in left field for Starling Marte, because Marte is still out with his oblique injury, but he's progressing well according to Buck Showalter, and he should hopefully be ready to go to start the season. So Brandon Nimmo was leading off. We saw that. Then we had Francisco Lindor in the 2-hole, Jeff McNeil in the 3-hole. McNeil was DHing tonight. Pete Alonso in the 4th spot. The 5th spot was Robbie Cano, who did not have a hit tonight. 6th spot was Eduardo Escobar. 7th spot was Mark Canha. 8th spot was Dom Smith playing in left field, as I mentioned. 9th spot was Tomas Nido, who actually came in kind of last minute because James McCann was originally supposed to be playing tonight, but he had, I believe, some back tightness, something along those lines that prevent him from playing. Not a big move, not a big problem. However, again, in spring, want to be as cautious as possible, but multiple guys stepped up for the Mets today offensively, and we'll get into more of the pitching. But if you look at my top 5, Wardy's top 5, that you're going to see as a reoccurring segment here in these post-game coverage. And again, guys, if you're wondering what we do here on the channel, we cover all things New York Mets. So make sure to come here if you guys are looking for the most consistent Mets coverage all throughout the season here on YouTube. This is a place to be. Not just in-game live streams that we'll be doing plenty of throughout the year, but consistent post-game live streams basically after every single game during the week. So at least 5 out of 7 days of the week, you're going to see post-game coverage for the most part here on the channel, along with individual video content and any other miscellaneous topics that we may discuss regarding our team in Queens. But getting into, again, how the Mets do today, this top 5, again, it starts with that Jacob deGrom debut. It was just simply fantastic. But outside of Jacob deGrom, there were multiple debuts that we saw today, and one that I was awfully impressed by. And again, shout out all you guys in the live stream that are just chiming in. I really appreciate you all being here. We're watching in replay too, because I know a lot of you guys will be doing that as well, because this is a later night. We started right around 9 p.m. Eastern time or so after tonight's game, and it will be later in the day, of course, after a lot of Mets games that start at, say, 7 p.m. Eastern time throughout the season. But Adam Ottavino made his Mets debut today, and something that I'm so glad that Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez, and of course, Gary Cohen, they pointed out, one of them did at least, I think it was Ron, but I could be wrong, was the release point of Adam Ottavino. Ottavino, he's not a submarine or anything like that, but he has a little bit of a kind of a sidearm type action release. Not completely, but he is a little deceptive with his release as a right-hander with that devastating slider, of course, that has so much break, so much movement when it gets released from his hand. We didn't see as much of that today in his stance, and I wonder exactly why that is. Maybe it was something he's trying to dabble with right now in spring, something he might be more comfortable with. But either way, Adam Ottavino looked awfully impressive for the Mets today. Pitched in 1 inning following Jacob deGrom's masterclass of a 2-inning performance. Had himself a strikeout and just looked, again, fantastic. Loved what I saw from Ottavino. And same thing with everyone that pitched for the most part today. They just shut the Astros down. Again, this was not an Astros starting lineup by any stretch. Really, the only true starter in the Astros lineup today was one of their best players, that being Kyle Tucker. Other than that, there really wasn't much going on there. But we get to our number 3 star, Dom Smith. And I got to give a huge kudos to Dom Smith for a second, because Dom Smith did something fantastic today. It wasn't just the fact that he got himself a hit and that led to a run scored. If you look at Dom, not just with his approach, how it's been in spring, being fully healthy, saying publicly that this is the best spring training he's felt he's ever had. This is the best physically he's felt he's ever been since arriving with the New York Mets. I have not seen Dom Smith look as slim and as healthy as he has this spring since he got drafted by the Mets, because we all know the story with Dom Smith dealing with, I believe, with sleep apnea, which really struggled with them gaining weight a lot. I saw how much he changed from when he was drafted all those years ago to then when he was in the minors. I saw him play and had that heavy gut on him, then had that transition into the MLB. I remember, of course, when he made his debut against the Yankees and everything. And Dom he just looks like a completely different player. He looks healthier than even last season, not just because of, dealing with his shoulder being fully healthy now, but his actual weight. Yeah, Dom looks, this is the best Dom has ever looked, in my opinion, health-wise. And that's great to see, because Dom is not just a tremendous human being, but he's a really good player. And if the Mets are going to be banking on him this year, we expect a lot from him. But so far, so good in spring. I really can't complain with what we have seen to this point. I appreciate that from him. He's definitely not doing anything for a lack of effort right now. That is for certain. Him being fully healthy obviously helped him this spring really get himself ramped up, because keep in mind, with the injury that he dealt with last year, that, of course, impacted everything he did when it came to working out and staying healthy and everything that he was doing, and also having to have 2 hands on the bat with his follow-through and his swing when he's normally doing a one-handed swing. So just things like that to keep in mind when you're evaluating Dom Smith. But I'm very happy with what we have seen from him for sure. But getting into now the other guys that stood out, Francisco Lindor had himself a very good game today, was 1 for 3, had himself a line drive, a single, and then, of course, got himself an RBI from a chopper, I would say. They called it an error, but it was really something that you can make the argument it would have been a single either way. It was a chopper right in the infield. It wasn't able to be handled by the Astros infielder. And just like that, by Nico Goodrum, who just signed with them this offseason after spending his entire career at this point with the Detroit Tigers. That's how he got himself the RBI. But yeah, Lindor looked very good today at the plate. And my 5th star, and I know that you could pick a lot of different guys, because again, we saw good pitching performances from Trevor Williams. Had no hit. He only gave up, he didn't give up any hits, only had himself a strikeout and a walk in 2 innings pitch. And Alex Claudio looked good. 1 inning, 1 strikeout. Jose Rodriguez had himself, gave up 2 hits, but didn't give up a run, and had 1 strikeout pitching wise in 1 inning pitch. But I'm going to give it to Travis Nagosic, because he really stood out to me today. I mean, he got himself 2 strikeouts in 1 inning pitch, had some nastiness with his pitches today. Nagosic, who's kind of been up and down with the Mets over this past year, between being on the roster, getting time, and being away from the team. A very, very solid outing from Nagosic. Overall, the Mets just looked really composed today, and we saw that sac fly from Jeff McNeil that I don't even have on the board of my top 5, but you have to give credit to McNeil, and I was saying this on Twitter too. It's important that the Mets get sac flies even in spring, and in case you're wondering why exactly is that, the Mets couldn't hit a lick last year, let alone actually get sac flies. They struggled to get runs in any way, shape, or form, to the point where they quite literally could not even get a sac fly. I felt that I could count on my hands the amount of times that the Mets had sac flies last season. So yeah, awesome to see Jeff McNeil absolutely rip first pitch down the right side, one right to the right fielder, that being Kyle Tucker, I believe at the time, if he wasn't swapped out already. And that led to, again, a run scored. Just awesome stuff from what I saw from the Mets today. Again, we're going to continue to see progression from these guys as they are getting quickly ramped up here in spring. But the highlight again today was simply Jacob deGrom to do what he did, to come out and be deGrominant per usual, really taking the stress off the shoulders of not just himself, but for all of us fans. And to the point where when you saw deGrom pitch and they panned to the actual to the dugout, everyone, no one was sitting. Every single person in that Mets dugout was leaning over and paying attention and witnessing the fantastic, the one and only Jacob deGrom do what he does best, and that is carving up hitters better than any other pitcher on this planet. So Jake looking fantastic, looks so happy in his post-game presser, and I'm just beyond excited to see what Jacob deGrom is not going to just do for more of in the spring, but overall throughout this MLB season. You know, God willing, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, that he stays healthy, because he is that X factor. If the Mets are going to get anywhere this year, it's going to be Jacob deGrom leading the way. And yeah, they also have another one of the best pitchers in baseball, Max Scherzer. So if they stay healthy, then the Mets have a potential for not just one, but multiple guys in their rotation competing for, yes, the Cy Young. And who knows what Chris Bassett's going to bring for the Mets this year, too. Is easily one of the best number 3 starters in all of baseball. I'm very excited for him and his debut whenever we see it in spring. We'll probably be covering it on the channel depending on the day. But yeah, I'm just really excited, guys. I'm smiling ear to ear. Again, if you are enjoying the live stream, if you're enjoying this post-game recap, don't hesitate to smash that like and subscribe button. As always, helping us to get a 15K subs for the next short-term goal on the channel. That's what we're trying to hit by opening day. And also help us get to 100 to 200 likes by the end of the live stream whenever we end. It's always appreciated. And again, folks, we'll probably ride this one out for upwards of an hour. But if you're watching in replay, we'll cut things off. I'll have it cropped for you a couple hours once it's done processing through the live stream. So it's just around a half hour long. That's how I want to keep the post games. But for people watching live, I want to answer as many questions as possible. So to this point, now it's time to answer questions, right? The Mets got themselves a nice win today. I'm very happy to see that. More than anything, I'm just happy to see Jacob deGrom doing what he always does. So beyond ecstatic, there is not a game tomorrow. It's awesome. The Mets will be back playing this Thursday, but they do have an off day tomorrow, this Wednesday. And by the time you're watching this, it might already be Wednesday. But let's get into some questions, shall we? Again, I'm pumped. I'm so pumped up to talk about Jacob deGrom, New York Mets, them getting a victory with the best pitcher on the mound today. That feels very good. Feels beyond good. Let's see. Jeremy says, should we read into anything deGrom only getting 2 innings? No. Most pitchers right now are only pitching 2 to 3 innings tops. So no, this is beyond normal. Scherzer pitched 5 yesterday just because Scherzer's a dog. Like, Scherzer, in his own right, in comparison to deGrom, is an anomaly of a player. Like, Max, he's always going to want to pitch as long as he possibly can. That's his best way of getting ramped up. Jake's a different story, especially coming off of his huge injury they had last year. They're going to take it easy with him, but most pitchers right now are not getting more than 2 or 3 innings as a starter. So Jake was perfectly in line, and now he'll be set, 5 days or so from now when he's ready to pitch again in spring. Just, yeah, nothing to read into that. Just awesome to see how well Jake pitched today, man. It just still feels surreal. Not that just the Mets have the rotation that they do, but that deGrom is back. I mean, my goodness gracious, did he look good today? He just looked like normal Jake. What's up, Fern? How's it going? Who pitches Thursday? I don't know, but it might be updated on my phone. If it is, I'll check for you guys. What unknown pitcher has caught my eye? Good question. I would honestly say that of the unknown pitchers, I mean, at least today, I wouldn't say he's unknown. But, I mean, Nogosek stood out today. That's why he's in my top 5. I mean, if you guys follow most things that the Mets do in their transactions, then you're pretty much aware of Nogosek, but still, he stood out to me today. Again, not that it's going to necessarily mean anything, makes me think of Hildenberger. Remember him? When I think he was, I'm trying to think if he's a righty or lefty. When he was in spring for the Mets last year, he looked awesome and it was carving up the Marlins in like the first 1 or 2 spring training games. And then the Mets ended up getting rid of him. And then he signed with the San Francisco Giants. I'm not sure what happened with him on that front, but just because, of course, the guy stands out in spring, it doesn't necessarily mean too much. It's just more important than not doing anything at all. You know what I mean? So that's really my take in regards to someone that's rather unknown. I would say that Nogosek is definitely not a player that everyone knows on the back of their hand and is paying attention to constantly. Let's see here. Going to answer more of your questions, guys. What about Tyler McGill? McGill isn't an unknown. I wouldn't say he's unknown. And McGill looked great. Pitched 2 days ago and at least 3 innings. Had 3 walks, but did not give up any hits and had some nice movement with his pitches. Working on more pitches in his arsenal. Working on a cutter right now. toying with a curveball. Yeah, there's a lot of upside with Tyler McGill. We know that. We saw that because he had a sub-4 ERA last season for the Mets. And we're talking about a guy that started his season in 2021 in Double-A. He went all the way from Double-A to the bigs and had a tremendous first 5 starts as a New York Met, something that no Met pitcher has been doing since the likes of Jacob deGrom. So I'm beyond high on McGill. I'm loving what I'm seeing from him. And, we'll see exactly how much of an impact he has for the Mets in their rotation this year. There's a decent chance it could be significant for sure. Let's see. You have family in Ukraine. Oh, yes. Of course, my thoughts and prayers are with your family in Ukraine and anyone that's affected, not just by the Ukraine situation, but all around the globe. I'm not going to go on a tangent here, but obviously no one agrees that war is a good thing, especially for innocents that have to go through it. So, my thoughts and prayers are with your family. I hope that they are going to be okay, my friend. Let's see. Does anyone know what DeGrom topped today? Yes. DeGrom topped right around 99 miles per hour, 98.7 to be exact, but I'm going to cheat and round it because that's normally what you do around these things. So, right around 99. Did not touch, of course, how you'd say 100 miles per hour, but that's not a big deal. You know what I mean? Do I think we still need a relief pitcher and a decent bat? Just saying. Okay, so I know I'm going to keep answering these questions until we find out for certain if the Mets do or don't. I am personally under the impression that I would like the Mets to do that, yes. Especially with having an expanded roster, because it looks from what it's been announced today, for those that aren't aware, that we're going to have an expanded roster from 26 players to 28 players this season. In my opinion, that even gives you further incentive to want to at least land another southpaw reliever, which I believe the Mets will do, and also potentially land another bat. There's plenty of guys out there, maybe not our favorite picks, but guys that can definitely get the job done over what the Mets currently have depth-wise, because Travis Jankowski right now is the Mets' 4th outfielder. Not that he's a bad player, but I mean, come on. I would still like a little bit more. I don't think I'm wrong for saying that, especially with the uncertainties of Marte and Nimmo throughout the season. We don't know how healthy they're going to be or lack thereof. So it's always important to have insurance and to have good quality depth. Speaking of depth, a former depth outfielder for the Mets, Kevin Pillar, signed with the Dodgers today. $2.5 million deal. He grew up a Dodgers fan too, I believe, that I saw in reports today. So that just felt like a match made in heaven. Wishing Superman all the best. I did not expect him to come back to the Mets at all. There was a mutual parting ways this offseason for good reason. Pillar had his good moments for sure and definitely seemed like a team player. But he was just so swing and miss. I mean, inconsistent bat, to put it lightly. A lot of home runs, but that's basically all the Mets got from him. And decent defense, still below average defense, but had some highlight reel catches. So again, for what I think you could argue what the Mets need for another bat right now, it's still someone different than Pillar, especially they could say land a lefty, because that makes even more sense when you look at how this lineup is currently constructed, in my opinion, at least. Let's see. Do I think Jeremy, another great question. Do I think there's a chance David Pearson gets converted to the bullpen? Yes, I do think there's a chance. I don't know how likely it is. It hasn't been announced or anything like that. But yeah, David Pearson isn't not cracking this lineup when it comes to the starting rotation anytime soon. He's an odd man out. So it's going to be up to the Mets. What do they want to prioritize more? Do they still want to prioritize potentially his ability as a starter, which of course can increase his value as a player should they say want to trade him down the road, because they have him. He's not a free agent, I believe, until 2026. So they have control with them for at least another 4 seasons or so. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, reliever-wise, wouldn't hurt to have another southpaw, especially a guy that can be a long reliever. So definitely someone to keep in mind. But before I go further, I would also like to let you guys know, especially my people on replay watching this, is the fact that the Mets did reach agreements with quite literally everyone that they had that they would have went to arbitration or not today, because today was the deadline to get deals done. Mets got deals done with basically everyone all around the projection of what they're looking for. So, of course, Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Edwin Diaz, all those guys, for the most part, got themselves contracts. The only person that did not, and it looks like he is going to be going to an arbitration hearing, is Chris Bassett, the new New York Met. I'm assuming that's just because of the fact that the Mets literally just brought him in and pretty much just want to weigh what they view his value is. It's a little tough to do these type of negotiations with the player when you acquired him and you haven't seen him perform yet. But I'm not concerned about it at all. I'm sure he's going to get a good penny, what he's looking for. The Mets are not going to penny pinch by any means. They're not that type of team at all. But it does look like that out of all players that were due for arbitration, if they were actually going to hearings or not, Bassett is that anomaly of a player right now. Just keep that in mind. It normally really doesn't matter, but there is a slight significance to this versus other years, because unlike previous years, because we were in a lockout, players obviously were not allowed to have their negotiations, their hearings during that time. So if Bassett goes into his hearing, which is that looks like the route they're going down right now, then he's going to have to do his arbitration hearing during the season, which again can, is a little frustrating, I would say, for the player, as is for the Mets side of things too, because you want to avoid doing any type of that monetary type issue during the season. So there, I don't know exactly when the hearing will be, but it will be at some point this season. So that is the one thing that I noticed from all the guys that were due for paydays or not today. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. Okay, Debesh, thank you so much for the comment. How do I feel about the offense remaining mostly dormant? I mean, I'm not concerned with the offense, to be quite honest with you. I mean, spring wise, especially, everyone's just getting ramped up. And as I was saying earlier, I truly hope that the Mets just land one more bat, especially outfield depth. It just solves so many more issues, in my personal opinion. I think the Mets would be banking on a little too much if they're really going to hope for Dom Smith to get decent amount of time in the outfield, for especially whenever injuries happen, because all it takes is one big injury, and just like that, Dom Smith is your starting left fielder, or however they would utilize it. And that's not okay with me. It's not. Travis Jankowski, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people this year. He's a better player right now than Kevin Pillar. He's better at getting on base. He's a ridiculous speedster. He steals bags like crazy, has more range defensively, very strong glove, just very underrated too, because how he's been utilized. But still, I would just like the Mets to add one more. Give me one more, preferably a guy with some more pop, and then I think we're cooking for sure. And again, it's going to be a fluent situation as we get into the year with how they evaluate offense, especially as we get to the trade deadline down the road, seeing what production will be by that time. Let's see. Did I see the Jays game today? I saw highlights of the Jays game, but I did not watch the entirety of it. No. Let's see. I like the dude who pitched in the ninth today. Yes, that was Nagosic, as we were saying. Prediction for what the bullpen looks like opening day. I'll answer that probably, as we get closer, because I don't think the Mets are done with the bullpen just yet. Once we know for certain if they're done adding the bullpen or not, then I will gladly answer that question if you ask it again at a different time. Fern, what's up, my friend? He says, Wardy, do you think if DeGrom opts out as he plans to do, the Mets at his age will rank the bank for him, or wait it out to see if they get Soto when he hits the market? Oh, yeah, no. As long as DeGrom is healthy this year, the Mets are not going to let this man leave. 1,000%. DeGrom's going to opt out after the season, and the Mets are going to make him the richest player in baseball, AAV-wise, per year. Not contract length, but per year. DeGrom is 1,000% going to become the richest player in baseball once the season ends, as long as he's healthy and just does what Jake normally does. The organization owes it to him. He doesn't owe anything to the New York Mets, and by no means are they going to let him walk. And I do not believe at all that Jacob DeGrom's contract, given his age, would be a detriment in pursuing someone like Juan Soto. I think the Mets will be in a perfect spot by then, because also have to keep in mind, once Juan Soto is a free agent, assuming he doesn't sign an extension, which I don't believe he will, Max Scherzer's contract will be off the books. Basically, every player that isn't named Starling Marte and Francisco Lindor will be off the books. Of course, that's without the assumed extensions to come for the likes of a Pete Alonso, potentially Brandon Nimmo on a new contract, maybe even Jeff McNeil among others. But the Mets are going to have plenty of dough to work with by the time Soto's ready, so I wouldn't correlate the two at all. Good question, though. Definitely an interesting question for sure. But before I go any further, guys, in the live stream, answering your questions about the Mets' 2-0 victory today over the Houston Astros, this is where we're going to cut things off for all my viewers that are watching on replay. So again, guys, if you enjoyed this recap, this analysis, showing highlights and sharing viewer reactions from fellow Mets fans, sharing their comments and overall analysis, please make sure, again, to smash that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed. Help us get a 15K subs. Help us get a 100, 200 plus likes by the time we were done watching this live. But again, on replay, that's where we are going to cut things off. Thank you guys all so much for watching there, and we'll be back here on the channel with post-game coverage and overall Mets coverage very soon. Let's go Mets.